Over the last 48 hours, much of the world has been focused on the crisis that was generated in the Middle East. As concerning as those developments are, other dramatic life and death emergencies are being pushed into the shadows. And the world is forgetting about the people of Sudan. Today marks an heartbreaking milestone, 1 year since the start of fighting between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces. And this is more than a conflict between two warring parties. It is a war being waged on the Sudanese people. It is a war on the many thousands of civilians who have been killed and tens of thousands maimed for life. It is a war on the 18 million people facing acute hunger and the communities now stancing down the terrifying threat of famine in the months ahead. It's a war on villages, homes, hospitals, schools, and vital systems that have been reduced to rubble in conflict hotspots. And it is a war on human rights and international humanitarian law. Indiscriminate attacks that are killing, injuring, and terrorizing civilians could amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. Aid convoys have been targeted, humanitarian personnel and warehouses have been attacked, women and girls are subject to rampant sexual violence, and meanwhile, the impact of the conflict is spilling across borders. Over 8 million people have fled their homes in search of safety, 1.8 million to neighboring countries. 1 year on, some 25 million people, half of Sudan's population, need life-saving assistance. The latest reports of escalating hostilities in Fasher, the capital of North Darfur, are a fresh cause for deep alarm. Over the weekend, RSF-affiliated militias attacked and burned villages west of the city, leading to widespread new displacement and fears of a takeover of Fasher, that is the capital of North Darfur, and a city with hundreds of thousands of inhabitants. Fighting continued today on the outskirts of Fasher. Counterattacks have led to more deaths and injuries. And let me be clear, any attack on Fasher would be devastating for civilians and could lead to a full-blown intercommunal conflict across Darfur. It would also upend aid operations in an area already on the brink of famine, since Fasher has always been a critical UN humanitarian hub. All parties must facilitate the safe, rapid, and unimpeded passage of humanitarian personnel and supplies through all available routes into Fasher. And this includes the timely approval of convoys and avoiding any measures that could delay or otherwise obstruct humanitarian movements. We must do all we can to ensure maximum humanitarian assistance in Darfur and elsewhere. Today, the International Humanitarian Conference for Sudan and its neighbors was hosted by the governments of France, Germany, and the European Union. The Sudanese people desperately need the support and generosity of the global community to help them through this nightmare. The 2.7 billion humanitarian response plan for Sudan was only 6% funded before the conference, and the 1.4 billion regional refugee response plan for the Sudan crisis only 7%. At the same time, as reflected in their commitments made in Jeddah, all parties must ensure full humanitarian access across borders and battle lines so vital aid can get to where it is needed most. They must heed the UN Security Council's call to ensure rapid, safe, and unhindered humanitarian access and to protect civilians. But the Sudanese people need more than humanitarian support. They need an end to the bloodshed. They need peace. And the only path out of this horror is a political solution. At this critical moment, in addition to global support for aid, we need a concerted global push for a ceasefire in Sudan, followed by a comprehensive peace process. My personal envoy, Mr. Ramtan Lamamra, is working tirelessly with scaled-up mediation efforts. This includes meeting with the leaders of the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, as well as leaders across the Horn of Africa and the Gulf region. And it includes efforts with the African Union, IGAD, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, the League of Arab States, and key member states. Coordinated international efforts will be essential to amplify joint action. This push for peace also means continuing our work on Sudan's democratic transition by supporting and empowering civilians, including women's rights groups, young people, and others. This must be an inclusive process that reflects all voices. The future of Sudan requires the contributions, participation, and vision of all Sudanese. And I will not relent in my call for all parties to silence the guns and meet the aspirations of the Sudanese people for a peaceful and secure future. Thank you.
Sherwin Bryce, please.
Secretary General Sherwin Bryce, South African Broadcasting. What do you believe, sir, 1 year into this conflict could fundamentally change the calculus on the ground, outside, of course, of the obligations of the warring parties? We've seen the mediation efforts fall short. We've seen international pressure fall short, including a recent Security Council resolution demanding an immediate Ramadan ceasefire in Sudan, which was largely ignored. What is left for the international community to do, and who in particular should do it?
The main problem is clear. There are two generals that have opted for a military solution and have until now obstructed all serious efforts of mediation. Efforts of mediation of the African Union and the IGAD, actions of mediation in the Jeddah process, in which Saudi Arabia, the United States, and other countries were involved. Offers of mediation that led to the Manama process, in which Egypt and the United Arab Emirates were involved. Efforts of mediation of the neighbors. All these efforts failed for a very simple reason, because the two parties have made a bet. And the bet is to win militarily. And for that, mediation is irrelevant.
Thank you. Gabriel, Al Jazeera.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary General, Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English. Two questions, sir. What is your assessment of how the talks went in Paris? Do you think that there was enough contributions from countries to help fund the humanitarian response plan? And number two, how do you respond to the government that says they have two priorities? One is to take military action to bring security and then the other priority being humanitarian aid to stave off a famine. What do you think the priorities should be?
The priorities should be a ceasefire and unimpeded humanitarian access and a political process to lead to a solution. On the other hand, it is not yet entirely known the result of the conference. We know of several important donations, and I hope that those donations will contribute to solve a dramatic lack of funding that the humanitarian community is facing at the present moment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.